Welcome back to another week here on MWO Sports. Ryan Drury, as always, I'll be joined by Steve Sabrin and Clarkey. Another great guest on the show this week, former Maple Leaf captain Rick Vaive, and author of the new book Catch-22, all about his life in hockey as well as away from the rink. We'll talk with Rick a little bit about the Ballard years, being named a young captain, scoring 50 goals for the Maple Leafs, of course, and much more. We'll also talk about the Washington Capitals' unfortunate COVID-19 situation that they find themselves in. We've got to talk about the Blue Jays. George Springer is a Jay, as well as Kirby Yates. Exciting times. They're definitely not done. And as always, we'll be joined by our wagering expert, Kris Abbott from Coolbet, on the NFL championship games, who's going to the Super Bowl, and ongoing NHL betting. You're listening to and watching MWO Sports, brought to you by Coolbet.co.
This is MWO Sports.
Welcome back to another week here on MWO Sports. Ryan Drury here, joined as always by Clarkey and Steve Sabrin, and we are very pleased to be joined by a great special guest. He is the author of a great new book, Catch-22, My Battles in Hockey and Life, the untold story of a Toronto Maple Leafs legend. Very pleased to be joined by former Maple Leafs captain Rick Vaive. Rick, how are you in this crazy COVID world?
I'm doing pretty darn good, considering I'm not going out doing what I normally do on a pretty much daily basis. It's go for a walk, watch TV, watch a hockey game, go to bed, get up, go for a walk. So it's pretty much the same every single day.
Yeah, we sound like kindred spirits right now, Rick. That's basically all we're all up to here on the show. Really glad to have you on. And let's start with the book, Rick. I mean, it's getting rave reviews, and you reveal a lot of things in here, like it says, untold stories that a lot of people just aren't familiar with. I know one of the things that you really dig into was some of the tumultuous times in the Ballard years of the Maple Leafs. It's been well documented. You know, numerous players had issues with them. Tell us a little bit, without revealing too much from the book, some of your memories of that time and just how hard it was on the team and yourself to be in that situation with an owner like Mr. Ballard was.
Well, it was difficult. I mean, the guy was meddling all the time. And, I think the biggest, frustrating part of it was the fact that he wouldn't spend the money to hire a good general manager that could make those moves at the deadline to help us kind of get over the hump, or, because there was a few years there from 85 to 87 where we had a pretty good team, but, we didn't have a good general manager that could make that deal. And we didn't have a coach that could put into systems that would make us a better hockey team based on the type of team we had. So, it comes down to an owner who didn't want to spend any darn money.
Rick, you were named a captain very young in your career with the Maple Leafs. What was that time like for you? And I think I remember you saying at one point you didn't think you were ready, but what else could you have done at that point? Is that true?
Well, yeah, and it's in the book, and hence the Catch-22 title, because when I started reading it, getting the chapters and all that together with Scott Morrison, and I started seeing the pattern my whole life of being in those kind of Catch-22 situations. And that was another one where Harold just came to me, and he didn't even ask me. Like, normally, the cap or the guy they want to be captain would sit down in a room with the GM and the owner, perhaps, and the coach, and they would discuss it. And in my case, he just came to me and said, "You're our captain." And I was in a position where, I was 22 years old. I'd already been traded once already, and I had no desire to leave Toronto. But I didn't think I was quite ready. I was 22 years old. We had a little bit of an older team at the time, and I didn't quite know if I was ready for it or not. But I knew that if I said no to Harold, that I was probably 99% sure he would ship me out of Toronto, which is not what I wanted.
Rick, you mentioned about sifting through the chapters while putting the book together. What was it like writing this book and going through the process of putting these stories on paper? What was that like for you?
Well, it wasn't difficult because it was true. It happened. It was part of my life. A lot of it, my fault. That I obviously take ownership of. But at the same time, there was other people involved, some other factors, and so it really wasn't that difficult. It was quite refreshing to kind of to get it into a book and get it out there. Some of the things that, not just myself, my teammates, but things I had to deal with in life, as well as what we had to deal with on the ice and off the ice while we were playing in Toronto or Vancouver, Chicago, Buffalo. I mean, it made no difference where.
Rick, one of the things as well that's in the book that I'm extremely interested in, and it's a story that has been touched on loosely by a couple people. I remember reading a bit about it in Patrick O'Sullivan's book, but just your experience with the Mississauga Ice Dogs at the time, and obviously Grapes really had his hands all over that. That's something that you dive into in the book as well. Take us back there and some of the memories and just things that went wrong, because that was one of the most tumultuous seasons in major junior history. Take us back there.
Well, that's a record that I'm probably never, ever going to lose, and that is the least amount of wins in a season with 3. But, I mean, we weren't a great hockey team to start with, and I guess it was probably late November, early December. We had made a deal that summer before I had signed on with Kitchener and got 3 or 4 players for Dickinson, I believe they traded there. And there was this one defenseman who really wasn't fleet of foot. I can't even remember his name at this point. It was so long ago. But Don came to me one day and he said, because Don liked him, because every time he got the puck, he just threw it off the glass and out. And you hear Don talking about that all the time. And he said, I want you to play this guy. And I said, well, are you telling me or are you asking me? And he said, thought for a second or two. And he said, I'm telling you. And I said, okay. So I played the guy probably 20, 22 minutes a game for 3 games. I think he was about a minus 17 or 18. And then I didn't play him again, but I never heard another word from Don on that particular issue, but a lot of other things, and started leaving nasty messages on my machine so that when I come in the morning to look over film and prepare for practice, I'd have to listen to these messages from him. And you know what? It was a tough year, but it was no tougher than any other year I had. I mean, I just, I did my job, and the guys I had, the kids that played for me, worked their tails off. We just weren't good enough. We had, at the beginning, 15 games in, Jason Spezza demanded a trade, and then we traded Weidman, who was one of our better forwards, Brian McGrattan, who was on a 40-goal pace. Blew his knee out halfway through the season, and then all of a sudden we started trading all our veteran players. And yeah, there was a lot of interference, but you know what? It is what it is. You do the best job you can. The players did. At the end of the day, it wasn't anybody's fault other than probably his and whoever was running the team. For not doing what they should have been doing from the inception of the franchise, and that is building it through the draft and developing.
Rick, you also talk about your battles off the ice in this book and your battle with alcohol. When did you realize you had a problem with it?
Yeah, you know what? I knew I drank probably more than I should have for a number of years, but I think it really kind of came out right around the end of my stay in Buffalo. I think when I realized that there might be an issue there. And that was a time when I was going through a rough time where I wasn't playing, I wasn't dressing, I was sitting in the press box for like months and wasn't thinking about, all I was thinking about was what the heck can I do to get myself out of this situation. And, but through the years, it was there. It was very prevalent. If you look back, 1979, I mean, that's what the guys did every day. After practice, go for lunch and have a few. And on the road. We'd always meet up somewhere after a game and that sort of thing. But, I'm not making any excuses. It is what it is. But I didn't realize that it was a real problem until, right around the end of my stop in Buffalo at the end of my career. And then into my coaching career as well. And then after my first year, had a bad incident after we got beat out in Norfolk and decided to quit the next day. And I did for almost 15 years.
Rick, looking at the number of stories that you share from your experience, is there one that really stands out in your mind that can maybe lead the younger generation, to better the game and better themselves?
Well, I would say that maybe it could better themselves if they have a problem with any kind of addiction. And I think that, that story is twice that I ended up beating it. The second time, having to go to rehab for 45 days. But, nonetheless, those are probably two of the biggest accomplishments in my life, is the fact that I overcame that not once but twice and came out better on the other side of it. So if anything, if anybody, anybody young person, and I've talked to some people have called me to come and meet with their sons or whatever that are going off to rehab. And I've had some pretty good conversations and some great people that have had great results because of that. Well, maybe not just because of me, but maybe it helped a little bit. And so this is kind of something that people that if they have any kind of a problem, they can realize that, if a guy playing in the NHL for 13 years can do that, then why can't I? And I think that goes along with the anxiety problems I had that weren't diagnosed properly in the early 80s. And, anybody suffering from any kind of mental illness, it's like, go and talk to someone, get some help, because if you keep it from anybody, it's just going to get worse.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said, Rick. And I know a lot of people have been very appreciative of you being really forthcoming with your story. You mentioned, as Clarkey said, you were thrust into the captaincy of an original six team. And the Toronto Maple Leafs, it really doesn't get much bigger than that at such a young age. You're 22 years old. I know it's a special fraternity. My generation thinks of Sundin, Gilmore, Clark, and the like. How much were you able to lean on former captains? The Sittlers of the world, Dave Keon, perhaps. Were you able to glean anything from any former captains when that was thrust upon you, or were you basically left to kind of swim along yourself?
No, I was on my own. Dave Keon had left Toronto many years before that with his battle with Harold over money, and then Daryl had been traded. I learned from Daryl rather what it was like to be the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, obviously when he was there, when I came in, but you know what, it was a big honor, don't get me wrong. Even though Harold went about it the way he did, it was still a heck of an honor. And I think if anything, it probably made me a better player, because I knew that every teammate of mine was always looking at me for, that guidance and that leadership. And my way of doing that was on the ice. I said, lead by example. Don't worry about the dressing room. That'll take care of itself. And Boreas Salmi, who sat beside me, was a real big backer for me and stood up a few times when I did have something to say. I wasn't a rah-rah yelling type guy, but there was times where I'd stood up and said a couple of words, and guys would say something, and Boreas would stand right up and tell them to shut up and listen. So those were kind of the people that really helped me along. Was Boreas more than anybody, and what I had learned from Daryl the short period of time that I spent with him.
Rick, I haven't received my promotional copy of the book yet. Maybe it just got lost in the mail. But is there anything about Leafs TV? We worked together for...
talk to Ruda because I'm not in charge of that.
Okay, no problem. We worked together for what seemed like about 25 years, but it was probably 6 or 7 at Leafs TV. I was producing and you were on air. It was a lot of fun. It was so cool for me, as you were one of my heroes and working side by side with you for so long. Is there anything in the book about working at Leafs TV?
I don't think it goes into extensive details about my time there. I mean, it's mentioned. I'm pretty sure. I haven't even read it yet. But nor do I think I will anyway, because I already know the whole story, so I don't really need to read it. But yeah, but I had a great time there, and working for the Leafs, and well, it was Leafs TV, but. It was a lot of fun. We had great people there, a lot of people that worked extremely hard and probably underpaid. And, working with Glenn Healy and yourself and Bob McGill and
Duffer. Better mention Duffer.
Duffer, who's now with the Sabres. And, he was always a Sabres fan, so we knew at some point if he ever had a chance, he was gone. And no, it was a lot of fun. It really was. And, it was doing Leafs TV and then being kind of an ambassador on the other side of it. And it was a lot of fun to do. I enjoyed it. I really did, except for that first perch we had up top that had a vent right above us. And if it was a long game and an overtime game, it'd be about, it seemed like 20 below zero where we were sitting anyway, especially when the building cleared out after the game and we had to do the post-game show.
Maybe that's why Duffer was so grumpy all the time. I don't know. Hey,
well, yeah, it could. That was part of it.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. Hey, listen, I have a picture behind me if you're watching on Whiteman or YouTube of you scoring your 50th goal on Mike Liu to the St. Louis Blues. The thing I remember about that night is that game wasn't on TV. Like, can you guys imagine nowadays a game not on TV, first of all? But Rick, what do you remember about scoring that 50th goal that night?
Well, great memories, really. I mean, how can you not? I mean, when you're the first player in a storied franchise to do that after, I think we were 65 years or so in by then, or in 82 rather, and now we're over 100. So, it was kind of surprising to find out that nobody had ever done it. And then when I got to 45, it was mentioned to me, and I was surprised that with all the great players that had played in Toronto over the years, that no one had ever done it. So, I got to 49 with 4 the game before the 50th against Chicago. And then that night, I remember we were on a power play, and I remember the puck came up the boards and it went to Billy D, and he kind of cut across the blue line and went to the other side. And I knew Billy and I played together. We had such chemistry, and Dan Dunn came in later, and it was the same way. We kind of knew where each other was going to be. So reading off of Billy, I pretty much knew exactly what he wanted to do. So all I did was kind of find an open space where he could get that pass across to me. Excuse me, he made a beautiful backhand pass right through the seam, and for me it was easy. It was just a quick one-timer, and it was all over, and it was 50.
That's amazing, Rick. I want to pick your brain a little bit about today's game and the situation that players are playing in. In ever your career or watching the game or being part of the game, have you ever seen such circumstances that the players are playing in now?
No, not even close. And, you're reading where the Capitals get fined $100,000 and 4 guys put on because they got together at 4 guys in a hotel room. Like, all right, whatever. I mean, those are the rules, I guess, and you got to go through it. But I mean, you know what? There's been some teams that have kind of haven't done it the right way, because there's been a lot of the cases in Dallas, for instance, and but most of the teams in last year, the bubble thing, they did a very, very good job of putting that whole thing together. And I think with all the rules that are in place, which I did read, there's no reason why anybody has to be going out or anything. Just, you're getting paid to go out and do your job on the ice. You're not getting paid to go to a bar or restaurant or something like that. So, deal with the rules and enjoy the fact that you're able to play the game through all this crap and go out and have fun. I mean, the game's supposed to be fun. You're supposed to have fun doing it, work hard, and it'll get back to you.
Absolutely. And I mean, yeah, we're definitely going to dig into that situation later with my beloved Washington Capitals. It's a sticky situation.
Yeah, I saw that hat. I don't know why, but
yeah, sorry about that. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I guess Ovi and the boys decided to have a little party in the room.
Yeah, they wanted to play checkers or something and couldn't resist. Rick, I want to ask you a little bit about your time in Toronto. Obviously, you're the captain of the team. You're the star player. You scored 50 there 3 times. You were the first player to ever do it. There has been a narrative over the years, certainly in my time watching the league, there seems to be this narrative. I think it's more prevalent among fans for sure that the media in Toronto is a deterrent for some people, and the media coverage gets blamed for a lot of the maladies that befall the team. They're underachieving or perceived underachieving. Some people wanting to get traded over the years or not wanting to come until John Tavares signed, obviously. Is any of that true in your opinion? I mean, you were there in the heat of it. You're the captain of this team at one point. Do you buy into that narrative at all?
Well, I mean, first of all, things were much different when I came. There was like maybe 15 or 17 people, more than most cities, reporters and TV and so on would be at practices and games. I mean, now it's completely different with the social media and the amount of sports talk shows and so on. You know what? I don't really buy into that because, I mean, it might happen with individuals. If a guy doesn't have thick enough skin, maybe he can't handle the pressures of playing in Toronto, a place like Toronto, where the media is so big. But team-wise, I don't think it has any bearing whatsoever. I mean, it's up to each individual to go out and do his job to the best of his ability. But if you don't have thick skin and you can't handle what people in the media or on social media are saying about you as an individual, well, then obviously it's going to affect the way you play, I think, anyway. But as a team, no, I don't think it shouldn't anyway. I mean, unless every single player doesn't have thick skin, which would be the only way that but I think they're all pretty thick-skinned and can handle it. So, I don't think it really has any bearing on it at all.
Hey, Rick, we were talking to you. I'm getting all my years wrong here, but I think it was a year ago when Auston Matthews was closing in on your record, and it's amazing. First of all, you still have that record. I mean, everyone was giving it to Auston. It was a done deal. He was going to get, surpass your record, but you still have it. It's an amazing circumstance that happened last year as the season was cut short and you couldn't do it. But I know you'll say that it's going to be a record that's going to be broken at some point, but it's kind of cool to still have the record, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. It is. It's pretty darn cool. And you know what? If it's there for until the day I leave this earth, then that would be even better. But I'm not even going to say the quote because you already said it. But Matthews was very, very close last year. I'm sure once they get back to a regular NHL schedule, there's probably a pretty good chance that he could get over that. But I felt bad for him last year. I mean, he did have a ways to go. He had to get 7 goals to tie and then 8 to pass it in 12 games, which is no easy feat. But he's a guy that could easily have done that. There's no question. I think he would have got 50, but to get to 54. But I felt bad for him that it was a pandemic that took that opportunity away from him. Like an injury, okay, I get it. That's part of the game. That happens. And he has had injuries in each of his previous seasons, which kept him from getting, anywhere close to 50. So I felt bad for the young boy or young man, and it would have been cool if he could have gotten 50 or 54 or 55, whatever, because it would have been two guys at the same age of 22 that went out and did that. But, he didn't get that opportunity because of the pandemic.
Rick, we really appreciate you doing this again. He has a new book out. You can buy it everywhere that you can get books. Catch 22, My Battles in Hockey and Life, the untold story of a Toronto Maple Leafs legend, Rick Vaive, former Maple Leaf captain. Before I let you go, Rick, I mean, we've talked an awful lot about your franchise goal scoring record, which is great that you still have it. It's a cool thing to have. Hey, not everybody can say they're the greatest goal scorer in terms of single seasons for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Who was the best goal scorer you ever saw in the NHL? Who was that one guy that could do it better than everybody else, it seemed?
Well, besides me,
yes.
Well, in my day anyway, I always thought Mike Bossy was the best pure goal scorer in the league, bar none. But I mean, he had a short career. He only played 9 years or 10 years. 9 consecutive 50-goal seasons or more from the beginning of his career. And then in the last one, he had back problems, and he still scored, I think, 39. And, maybe could have gotten 50 again for a 10th consecutive year. But I thought he was the best goal scorer in my era anyway. And now there's a bunch of them. I mean, there's Ovechkin, there's Matthews, there's Draisaitl. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there that can score 40, 45, 50 goals in a heartbeat.
Hey, Rick, I'm sure this wasn't in your book, but I'll never forget one of my favorite memories playing hockey. Not only our shinny that we used to do at the Air Canada Center, but Rick actually came out to one of my men's league games in Oakville. And I remember him walking in the dressing room, sitting down, and one of the guys looks at him and goes, "That guy looks like Rick Vaive." And the whole dressing room cracked up. But then Rick's playing, and I guess halfway through the game, Rick realized that you could take slap shots. And he's like, "You could take slap shots? Cool." So he let a couple rip by the goalie's head. But unfortunately, if this is how the game ended, Rick took like an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, and we lost the game. So there you go. But you miss play. You must miss playing, though, right? You must miss playing.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. It didn't end well. In those types of leagues, I played in the Toronto Ball Hockey League when I was playing for the Maple Leafs, and it was the same there. It was like guys are going to take shots at you because of who you are, and they want to be able to go home to their buddies or go to the bar and say, "Oh, you know what? Guess what? I slashed Rick Vaive across the arms," and that's going to happen. But I hated losing, and I had a temper, and that wasn't going to change on any ice surface. So, a guy did that to me, and I took an unsportsmanlike, unfortunately, but I missed the game. Like our alumni games. Like I used to play in tournaments like Easter Seals and Hockey Helps the Homeless. Like I played, 60 games a year roughly, and in those tournaments you play 4 games in one day. And boy, I'll tell you, at 61, that's getting a little bit difficult. But I still love playing. You can put the puck in the net, especially with those new sticks, and I have a lot of fun with the alumni guys in the room, and afterwards we always go out and have something to eat. And it's just great. It's a lot of fun, and I just love playing the game still. And I'm not going to stop until the time comes when I just can't lace the blades up and step on the ice anymore.
Well, that's great to hear, Rick. Again, we really appreciate you doing this. Rick Vaive, former Toronto Maple Leaf captain, multi-time 50-goal scorer, and author of a new book, Catch 22. You can get it everywhere that you like to find your novels. Rick, we really appreciate you doing this, man. Thank you so much. Glad to see you're well.
Oh, my pleasure, guys. Thanks a lot. And everybody stay safe. It's a crazy, turbulent time that we're going through, but we'll get through on the other side, and we'll be better for it, I think.
We absolutely will. We really appreciate it, Rick. All right, we'll take a quick break here on MWO Sports. When we come back, lots to talk about, including the championship games in the NFL and, of course, the Blue Jays finally landing a superstar. We'll talk about that next here on MWO Sports, brought to you by Coolbet.co.
This is MWO Sports.
Welcome back to MWO Sports, brought to you by Coolbet.co. Ryan Drury still along with Steve Sabern and Clarkey. We really appreciate former Maple Leafs captain and 50-goal scorer Rick Vaive for joining us on the show. Gentlemen, lots to talk about. We mentioned that we're going to dig into the Jays, and we will do that. But first of all, let's talk about my Washington Capitals. Who
keep them in control, Drury. What's going on? The Russians are out of control.
Disarray, gentlemen. We briefly brought it up with our friend Rick Vaive. This is, I'll be honest, I can't say I'm surprised. And I know right now I've literally got a hat on, and I am going to have a fan hat on. I can't help it. Anytime I talk about the Capitals, it's hard for me to approach it with an analytic hat on.
We know.
Yeah. So I'm not surprised because of the temperament of this team since Barry Trotz left and we won a Stanley Cup, which, by the way, still remains one of the most bizarre sports things I can think of in the last 20 years. I mean, I did research. I was trying to find, outside of coaches retiring, I was trying to find an instance of this where a coach just left, was allowed to go to a rival organization in your own division, nonetheless. I couldn't find an example of this after winning a title. I still hate that. And in the last 2 years, this team under Todd Reirden was a mess in many facets. I was excited by Peter Laviolette's hire. I'm still excited about it. The team still has a ton of work to do. They're 2-0-2. I know there's really no reason to panic, but after watching what the team did over the last 2 seasons, and especially in the bubble, I'm panicking a little because I'm seeing the same old stuff. Way too many penalties, although our penalty kill suddenly is unbelievable. It's the best in the league. Our power play is a disaster. We allowed a 5-on-3 goal shorthanded the other day against Pittsburgh. I almost fell off my couch. It's frustrating. And then a giant part of your leadership core. I know Orlov and Kuznetsov don't have A's on their sweater, but Ovechkin's the captain. And then young Ilya Samsonov, it's revealed today, he is the one who tested positive for COVID, obviously from outside contact, but he hung out in a hotel room with his 3 Russian teammates. We understand they're all very close. Of course, but these guys agreed to rules that the NHLPA negotiated with the NHL. Whether you think it's a dumb rule that they can't hang out in a hotel room, do I think it's a dumb rule? Yes, I do. But they agreed to it. It doesn't matter. If I agree with Steve that I'm not allowed to wear denim in the office anymore, and then I show up and I wear denim, it doesn't matter that I think it's a dumb rule. I agreed to it. I'm frustrated with this group. I'm upset with Ovi because he should have known better. Severe lack of judgment here, and I'm ready to call the Yevgeny Kuznetsov experiment over. He was unbelievable in that cup run. No one can ever take that away from him. I love the bird, Selly, but the problem with this guy is he is not held accountable enough for the level of skill he has. He is Alexander Semin all over again, albeit much better and has contributed more. This guy could be a superstar if he felt like it. And he said last season, leading into the year, that he knows he's very talented and they lean on him and all this, but he doesn't necessarily care. And I'm paraphrasing what he said. He doesn't necessarily care about being looked at as a superstar. That tells me an awful lot because this guy is talented enough to get 90 points a year and he won't do it. He shoots when he should pass. He passes when he should shoot. Then he does something dumb like this with a cohort of his teammates. I'm fed up with it. And they deserve this. I'm surprised they weren't fined more. And I personally believe that the 4 players, Ovechkin, Orlov, Kuznetsov, and Samsonov, should pay the $100,000 fine and not the owner, because it's the players that did this, and they should be held accountable to the utmost degree. Gentlemen, your opinions, Steve.
Well, I think you kind of filled everything in there, right?
What else is there to say, Drury?
And it comes better from you being the fan of the team.
Oh, thank you.
But the only thing I would add is that it also puts the team in a bind in the sense that because of the year that they're playing in with the way the divisions are set up, you can't tell me that Florida, New York, or the other teams smell blood in the water and have a chance to put Washington down to a point where it's going to be very tough to come back. A quick start to this year was very, very important. Every game is key, and this could be detrimental for the Caps from a standings and a psychological point on the ice. So we'll have to wait and see.
You're absolutely right. Clarkey, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask you if, and I haven't seen the entire story, did these guys just a fine, right? No suspensions. Now, you mentioned one guy did, though, test positive. So what is the protocol now for that guy and the team? Because this could now run rampant through the Caps locker room. So
here is where things get dicey, right? Because we're all aware of the Carolina-Nashville game that got canceled because a number of Carolina players and staff tested positive,
right?
We are told. The Dallas Stars, I believe, still have yet to play a game. They had 19 players and staff test positive. They have still not played yet, I don't think, which is crazy. So this is a different situation based on what's been reported out of Washington. There are a number of good reporters down there. Samantha Pell, Tariq Al-Bashir, they're great at covering the team. Those four are on the COVID-19 protocol list. They are all quarantining, and they're doing contact tracing with them and the members of their family. Samsonov is the only one of the four who has tested positive, but because the other three were in the room with him, they are now on the COVID list, and they have to quarantine for a period here. They cannot practice, and they can't be in contact with any of their other teammates.
It's just so selfish, right? It's just like not only now have you maybe screwed the team, but like now the NHL schedule might have to be amended if they can't field a team. And my feeling is, if this was like done so like blatantly, let them play with 12 guys. Like,
so here's,
you know what I mean?
They're still scheduled to play their next game against Buffalo.
Well, everyone on that team needs to have a test before
they've all been tested. No one else has tested positive on the team. And so there was a period when this all came out of frustration among Caps fans, not so much from my perspective, because I understand it, but there was a segment of the fandom and other NHL fans wondering, hey, so if Dallas and Carolina had all these guys test positive and their games got postponed, why are the Capitals being forced to play without, my criticisms aside, four of their best players? And the reason is because they have enough players, and they've called up guys off the taxi squad. Brian Pino, Craig Anderson is likely going to get a start. The veteran guy, he's going to have to start because Samsonov can't go. So they have enough guys to field a full lineup. They will do that, and they will be without Orlov on the blue line. So Martin Fehervary will likely play. Craig Anderson will play in place of Samsonov, and they have enough guys that have tested negative and are following protocols that they will go ahead and play the games. And that's exactly what they deserve. These four guys deserve to be on the ice. And frankly, Steve, you mentioned this, getting off to a good start. They win the first two games against Buffalo. They have a chance to get on top of a not great Pittsburgh team. And Washington should have won both those games. They lost the second one in embarrassing fashion. I've not seen a loss that embarrassing in years. You're up 4-2 with a 5-on-3 power play. You give up a unbelievably rare 5-on-3 shorthanded goal. You let Pittsburgh tie it, and then you lose in overtime off of a terrible turnover. Now
you're up against a Buffalo team that's starting to. They just come off a split against a very tough Philly team.
Yeah,
and it's all about momentum. And we've talked to some guys earlier on before the season started that, I mean, you don't have time to recoup from a downswing.
And not only that, but there's a guy chasing a record, and every game he misses is another game he can't score a goal. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, I'm not like,
I know what you're saying, buddy.
Yeah, like chances are, like if he finishes a season 5 short, guess what? He's going to come back and play until he breaks a record, then retires. Like he'll play as long as he can if he can. But like, it just goes. The biggest word that keeps popping into my mind is selfish. It's just so selfish what these guys did.
It sucks. Yeah, they whether you think the rule is stupid or not, the fact of the matter is these guys were told what the rules were, and they ignored them, and they're paying the price for it, and rightfully so. Okay, enough about the Capitals. I know majority of our viewers don't really care.
No,
it
but
is
that's a big story.
It's a big story. It is. I will take the hat off now. I'm going to leave it on. My mop's not great either. I haven't seen a barber in a while, fellas. Let's talk baseball. Man, I was fired up for this. The Blue Jays finally land a big fish. George Springer signs the biggest deal in franchise history, 6 years, $150 million. The word is that there were other teams like the Mets that went in for him. The Jays went that extra mile and paid more than anybody else. They've landed him. This is huge for the team, guys. Clarkey, I'll start with you this time. What was your impression of this signing, and are they done?
I don't think they should be done. They need to add some pitching for sure. But you know what? It's amazing to me with the way the world is right now that Mark Shapiro could go to the ownership of Rogers and say, listen, we want to pay a guy more than we've ever come close to paying a guy before. He's a really good player, but we're going to pay this guy a lot of money. And by the way, we might have to play another year in Buffalo with no fans. Is that okay? Like Shapiro's a genius for getting this by the board, the Rogers board. But good on him. I mean, they need to do it. Springer's a great player. Hopefully he doesn't need a garbage can to prove it, but it's just like he's a superstar, right? And that's what they need, and they got it, and they're going full out now, and they just need some pitching to accompany that. I saw some pictures of Vladdy Jr. He's all trim. Like, it reminded me of last offseason when we saw him skipping rope, but he looks a lot better. Let's see if he is a lot better when baseball actually starts. But a great move by the Blue Jays, and they got Brantley too, right? That's what I saw on Twitter yesterday.
They did not. Yes, there was a lot of confusion. I was excited about that too. The initial reports from a number of sources told people that cover the Jays, even within the Jays, allegedly that the deal was done. It is not. Michael Brantley, it is official. He is going back to the Houston Astros, which is unfortunate because, Steve, on top of pitching, which is an obvious need in the bullpen and, of course, the rotation to get Ryu some help, they could really, really use a left-handed bat.
Well, yes, but then that would leave you with a huge surplus of outfielders. And that's the trouble they ran into last season, right? So, you know what, they got Springer, and I think the big part of that is the 6 years, because it's not a 2-year deal, it's not a 3-year deal, it's a long deal, and hopefully, as Clarkey alluded to, if they do have to play in Buffalo one more season, it still gives fans something excited about the following season when they come home. The only thing I'm a little concerned about is if you're a student of history, this is a very similar setup to the Blue Jays that signed Vernon Wells to a long-term, very expensive contract. And they had an ace pitcher up their sleeve in the name of Roy Halladay. What they couldn't do is shore up the bullpen and get that second starter that could really support Halladay on the team. So, is there more money in the pot? Can they afford to go out and maybe get another arm for the bullpen or another pitcher for the starting rotation? And in that case, too, it's good that they didn't spend it on Michael Brantley, because now they have money to do so.
Absolutely. And I mean, the thing here is the Jays have talked, and Atkins and Shapiro talked about their philosophy, and, have told everyone since the summertime, basically, we've got money and we want to add to this team significantly. They finally do it. Should also mention they signed Kirby Yates, who will help the bullpen, a veteran arm, $8.5 million deal. He will help. It would be great if they could really, really flex their muscles. Not that spending $150 million isn't flexing your muscles on a very, very elite defensive player, pretty solid batter as well, garbage can aside. It would be great if they could go get a guy like Brad Hand. That would transform the bullpen. I mean, it would give guys like Romero help. Yates adds to the mix, of course. That would be fantastic. Ken Giles as well in the mix. I mean, that would be great. Are they potentially still in the hunt for a Bauer? Could they go after Tanaka, Odorizzi? There's still options out there. And like I said, they are going to have to make a trade. They have too many players. So, and like you said, Steve, they're loaded in the outfield. Randall Grichuk, $10 million tag. He's probably not a guy that teams are going to want to take.
You're not going to get anything for him anyway.
Yeah. So is Lourdes Gurriel Jr. That type of guy. Is he the guy that goes?
I think if they want to add a quality arm, then he's a guy that the other teams are going to look at for sure. Because if I'm not mistaken, he's on a pretty good ticket right now. So yeah, for sure, I think that's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, Steve, we've talked about this before too. The whole Vladdy thing. Who is going to play third base? They would love to find a permanent third baseman. There's rumors that they could potentially call up the Chicago Cubs and get a guy like Chris Bryant. That would be a massive splash.
It would. I mean, again, the corners are kind of up in the air for the Blue Jays at first and third. Just kind of fiddling around with names.
Yeah, because sorry, go ahead.
Of who they have now. I mean, realistically, you could bring Teoscar Hernandez in from the outfield to play a little first base and put Gurriel in left with Springer in center and Grichuk in right. Which kind of normalizes the outfield. Like Gurriel Jr. was a very, very good defensive outfielder for the Blue Jays over the last season and a half. He proved his worth defensively. Hitting, he was very, very streaky. He had the hot start off in the short season and then cooled off, but all of the Jays bats were a little cool. So they have some options in that sense. Also up the middle, like, I mean, you'd like to go up and get maybe an everyday shortstop. Bichette, decent at shortstop, but you want to move him over to the second base side and have another guy come in and play short. So, a lot of questions.
Absolutely. Well, hey, my guy Marcus Semion's still available. Maybe they, put the lure in the lake for him too. Lots of possibilities. There's going to be more coming from the Jays.
You got to think they're all in. They got to go. They got to do it now, right? They're all in, and you got to just keep going. You got to keep adding if you can.
Yeah, well, you don't spend $150 million and just sit back.
Exactly.
You know what? And it's also good from a personality standpoint because Springer's a spark plutter, right? He's a guy that brings energy to the table. He is great for the leadoff, and now maybe Bichette drops down to the second spot and becomes that supporting batter in the lineup to Springer's leadoff. That's fantastic. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of Springer jerseys being printed and put on the racks very, very shortly.
Absolutely, and rightfully so. The Jays really making some noise, and they are not done yet, and neither are we. We'll take a quick break here on MWO Sports, brought to you by Coolbet.co, and come back to preview the NFL Championship Series games. Coming up next with our wagering expert, Kris Abbott from Coolbet. Stay tuned.
This is MWO Sports.
Welcome back to wrap things up here on MWO Sports, brought to you by Coolbet.co. I am Ryan Drury, still along with Steve Sabrin and Clarkey, and we welcome in, as always, our wagering expert, Kris Abbott from Coolbet. Kris, how you doing?
Doing great, guys. How you doing tonight?
Where are you tonight? Where are you? You're somewhere different.
Yeah, well, I'm still within my bubble, but I'm out of my condo for the first time in a little bit, just at my girlfriend's place. So, she's got a better decor than I do, that's for sure.
Yes, I agree. You should do all of your future appearances in front of the shelf. Yes, sir.
Just put some stuff on the shelf, though, will you?
Yeah, maybe.
Well,
yeah,
like little inside baseball. The shelf is getting moved out of here. That's why there's nothing on it. So
perfect.
yeah.
Good excuse. Good excuse. All right. Speaking of the shelf, Patrick Mahomes, that's the story. Is he going to be on the shelf? I doubt it, but it could greatly affect the AFC Championship game. Bills, Chiefs, who do you like? Let's just assume Mahomes plays because I think he will. Who do you like in this one, and what's the spread looking like?
Yeah, I think he plays as well, and the spread reflects that. The Chiefs are a 3-point home favorite. I said to somebody else earlier this week, I don't expect this to be the week that the NFL gets to the forefront of head injury prevention and promotion. So I don't think there's any way he's not playing. And if he does, the line will completely switch. I do think, however, if there is a chance of an underdog covering or winning outright in one of these two games, I think this is it with the Bills. They've had a nice little run here, and there's nothing to indicate that it won't continue. But I think, if the Chiefs are going at full bore, they're a real hard team to stop, although they do have some injury troubles. So it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. I'm looking forward to it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and the thing, too, is with the Buffalo Bills, you look at Beasley's not 100%. He's got the knee. He's had less time than he has had in the past. Diggs, has been a question for the last couple of weeks, but he always seems ready to go. It's interesting that it's only a 3-point spread, Kris, because that really shows how good Buffalo is this year, right? Especially with the Chiefs at home.
Yeah, for sure. The Chiefs are a touchdown or more favorite an awful lot. And you play this game in week one, you don't see a 3-point spread. So the Bills have earned that respect. They've been given it. 3-point spread for the home team basically means that the odds makers think this game is a coin flip, and they give the home team 3 points basically for being at home. This game will be fun. I don't expect there to be a whole lot of running. We've seen that the Bills' run game isn't that great. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is hurt. So I think you're going to see Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes throw the ball an absolute ton, which kind of points me toward the total, which is at 54 points. If they're throwing it a lot, we might get over that easily.
Yeah,
Kris, are you going to bet that the Buffalo Bills make it to the Super Bowl? That's what
I'm not actually. No, I'm not.
Okay.
What I did do a few weeks ago, though, they were at 7-1, so I put a little bit down there. I don't know that now is the time to bet on the Bills. I think the Chiefs are better than 3 points ahead of Buffalo. I just think if there is an opportunity for an upset, it is in this game. But I will be betting on the Chiefs and on the Packers this weekend.
So you basically answered my next question. Packers Bucks. You like Aaron Rodgers to take down Tom Terrific and that passing arsenal that he has. This will be a fun game to watch too, but I know they slapped them around in Tampa earlier this year, but that doesn't mean anything at this stage. And Aaron Rodgers has had a chip on his shoulder all year since they drafted a quarterback. He wants this. I think Green Bay might walk away.
Yeah, Ryan, I think you're right, man. That's what I'm expecting as well. If you look at that game last week between Tampa Bay and New Orleans, what we saw was a game that New Orleans was in and were leading or could have got away with it, and then they had a bunch of turnovers. Aaron Rodgers is not going to turn the ball over 3 times on Saturday. If he does, I'll eat my hat live on Periscope. It's not going to happen. He is not going to throw 3 interceptions. I don't know if he ever has. So, it's not going to happen. So I think the Packers will make the most of their possessions. I do think the only caveat in this game is if you see that Brady has like a 10-point deficit in the fourth quarter, you might want to live bet the Bucks because he's at least going to make it interesting. He always does. But I think the thing with the Packers, and we really saw last week, we were wondering what they would do against like a really competent defense in the Rams. And I know Aaron Donald missed a lot of snaps, but I don't know if it would have mattered, man. They just made it look easy. And playing at home, I think the Packers win this going away. I like them too. They're at 3.5, 4 points. Depends on the hour, really. It goes back and forth. One thing to also take note of, even though it is an upside down year, no team ever has played in the Super Bowl in their own stadium.
Pretty interesting. And again, like you said, both games are going to be great, and any combination really at the end of the day of a Super Bowl matchup is going to be a lot of fun to bet on. Should mention we're on this broadcast heading into Maple Leafs Oilers Part 2. The first game this week was a little bit of a snooze fest. It wasn't the most exciting game.
And that's why, Drury, and that's why I don't bet. because if there was ever a game you might want to pick the over, to me, that would have been it. But it was a snooze fest. You're right.
It was. And stay tuned, our CKNX AM 920 listeners. You're going to go right into the pregame and then listen to the great and incomparable Joe Bowen. But, Kris, exciting start to the NHL season overall. Leafs Oilers, I mean, what can you say? This matchup is always must watch. Is it must bet, though?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think the game, what was that, Wednesday night? You had a couple of tired teams, and everybody and their dog bet the over. Everybody bet on the Leafs because, you know, the Oilers had looked so bad their last couple of times out. And, of course, the Oilers win. The total goes well under, and sportsbooks have a field day. What we have seen with these back-to-backs with the same teams in the same building is we usually get the opposite game script the next night out. So if you bet over in the Leafs on Wednesday, I think going back to the well is probably the smart move here. I think we will see lots of goals in this game coming up. And who wins, I don't know. But I think we'll get a good price on the Leafs, especially after losing to the Oilers on Wednesday. So I'm not a guy. I hate to bet on the Leafs. I'm a Leafs fan, but they always break my heart, along with 15 million other people in this province. But I think they're a good bet. I think the over is a great bet in this game.
Absolutely. I would agree. You heard it here first. Kris, our wagering expert, Kris Abbott from Coolbet. He likes the Chiefs. He likes the Packers to walk away. Bet the Leafs. Take the over as we head into the game here. You've still got time.
And he's on Periscope.
And send me the invoice. Send me the invoice when it all goes awry.
Absolutely. Share your winnings. Share your winnings. All right. You can catch this show live on CKNX AM 920 Friday nights just after 6, except when the Leafs play. We start at 5:30 leading into 6:30 pregame. So keep that in mind as we do this week. You can catch all the Leaf games, remember, on CKNX AM 920 all season long. You can find us on cknx.ca streaming live there as well. You can find the podcast on all the best podcast apps. We are on social media on Twitter and Facebook at MWO_sports. We are very pleased to be sponsored by Coolbet.co every week, and you can catch us as well on YouTube and Friday nights at 8, Sunday nights at 9 with our friends on Whiteman TV. I am Ryan Drury. He is Steve Sabrin. He is Clarkey, and that is our wagering expert, Kris Abbott. We appreciate you listening to and watching MWO Sports.